Blind over here. None of it's real cloud.
Well, today we're still in Lincoln, not for much longer, but I lost the stream earlier. I just want to come back on and say that we had an excellent conversation with two police constables, elastic police constables.
Community support officers.
That's
but
what they were.
They got to ride in a real police car.
Oh yeah, they were in a real police car, and they were in twos.
They weren't keeping 2 meters apart.
They didn't observe social distancing to the letter of the guidance. I think this is something we might have to report.
I thought one of them might have got in the boot and the other one in the driver's seat.
Well, we had a really good conversation with them and gave them a whole bunch of information, and they were genuinely quite interested in it. They said it was nice to meet some people with good information. Hi Carla, how are you? I hope you're well. I hope your back's well. I know you've had some problems with your that stuff. Shame you have to go through all those operations. It sucks. But this is a great time to be alive and a great time to be here. And it was a good conversation we had with those guys. And we look forward to seeing them again. I think what's useful to know is they didn't say anything about you guys shouldn't be anything like that. We're just walking around, keeping an eye on things. And I told them I earn a living by doing street interviews. That living has been pretty good, actually, I have to say, thanks to my friend Ian Sharon, who's provided us with an awesome situation. As I said earlier, Luke has joined us, so we're going to ride this out for now, where we are in the camper van. Thanks Jason again. I can't get the gas fire working, but we'll come up with a workaround for now. Anyway, we had gas man the other day. Actually reminds me of a gas man. Ian and I went to the gas store, and I got shooed out of the store because I wasn't taking COVID seriously. And he had to stay. A long way away from the counter. What's that? You heard
the man from Lincoln Calagas.
Yeah.
Had been texting into the local radio station.
Yeah.
He was just saying how crazy this all is, guys freaking out.
People are taking seriously now.
Yeah.
But those police were quite interested in the idea that this is like a fear campaign by the government. But we did tell them that there was things coming down the pipeline. There's things coming down the pipeline. And that seems to be more and more sure as the days go by. And they ridiculously continue to raise the ante. This should be very busy, thronging with people. I'm going to do a little bit of artwork on the street in a minute. Thanks for hitting the thumbs up. All right, mate? How you doing? Yeah? You well?
Yeah.
Social distance. Got to keep your social distance. Yeah, so I was saying earlier on, like when Flat Earth was the big thing, well, it still is the big thing, but gosh, how they've captured the imagination with coronavirus. I think there's a guy reading my stuff from the other day. It has been, someone has come and put some additional writings, not very pleasant stuff. I think they prefer living on a ball.
I think they use red brick to write it.
Yeah.
Two ad hom.
Yeah, two ad hominems there as well. Thanks for pointing that out. I was abused in chalkways. Yeah. Oh, Ian, if you wouldn't mind just holding the cam while I do a little bit of arching.
Hey, someone just said you might see Simon Dad.
No chance. I invited Simon Dan to a friendly conversation in his hometown. I went to his hometown and invited him to a conversation. He didn't bother responding. Some of his henchmen called, try to, say something, but he never turned up because he doesn't have truth on his side. I am. Have you looked into it? Have you found any bodies of water that bend like this on the surface? The water's always level. The sea is always level. Our oceans are level, and Earth is 70% ocean. Where does the water go then? So where does it go? Well, we know from physics that water must be contained. If not contained, it would fall. It would fall off the ball. Yes. Why doesn't it fall off the ball?
We live in a bowl.
We live in a bowl.
A bowl, yeah, big bowl.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I'd go with that, but no space. Space is space. Things don't float. Things don't float. Rocks don't float. Everything that goes up comes down.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So that's
it.
Is it gravity? Or is it Newton's third law, when the equal and opposite reaction? So if I lift something up this high, it's going to fall with a certain amount of pressure. If I lift it this high, it's going to fall with a certain amount of
It would do
force.
more pressure, though, wouldn't it?
The higher I lift.
The higher it falls, the higher it falls from the however you drop it, the higher it falls, the more impact it's going to have on the ground.
But does it take more energy to lift it to 1 meter, or does it take more energy to lift it to 2 meters?
2 meters.
Exactly. So I've put more energy to lift the weight to here than I have if I only lifted it to here, right?
Yeah.
So that's more energy. So the return of that energy is going to be greater.
Yeah.
So that's why you see the more I lift, the more it falls.
Oh,
The
the harder and the quicker.
But it requires for the apple, or the tree of the apple, to lift droplet by droplet, little bits of water off the ground and into the apple. And eventually when the apple's heavy enough, it falls to the ground again. But all of that water has to get lifted up in the first place.
Yeah.
And so all you're seeing when we say gravity is the return. Because I lifted it up this much, it drops down, it overflows, and then it will carry on running.
Yeah.
So if we lived on a ball, it would have to all run off the side of the ball.
So do you believe Earth's flat then?
I know that Earth is not moving because we can't sense any movement. They say we're moving 700 miles an hour here in the UK, but there's no there's no movement that you can detect. Right? There's no scientific experiment that you can do to detect movement either.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Would you think different though if you went to space or something, or do you not believe in that either?
Okay, so do you know the laws of thermodynamics?
No,
do you know if you heat
I'm not
something?
very smart with science. I understand
okay,
the
but
science.
you'll know this.
We didn't
You'll
know
know this.
GCSE.
Okay.
All
All right. But so you'll know this. That if you heat something up, it expands like a hot air balloon, right?
Yeah,
it
yeah.
expands, right? So we know that's thermodynamics.
Yeah.
If your deodorant can got punctured, what happens?
It
Depressurizes straight away, right?
Yeah.
So we live in what's called a pressurized system here. We're under 1 bar of pressure here in Earth. Now, if they say that there's no deodorant can, there's no firm roof on the top of this, that would mean that in thermodynamics, all the gas should be just pulled off straight away, just like your deodorant can.
Yeah.
The second law of thermodynamics is that to have a pressure, you need a container. Otherwise, the pressure will disperse evenly around all space. So we say that NASA have been faking the whole idea of space, that space isn't even real, that it's all a comic book thing.
What's the moon then?
The moon is a light that we can see, and it travels across the sky every day.
What's the crack with the whole sort of day and night thing? Because that happens from the world spinning.
Or if I took a big hall in the church or whatever, and I had a light that was able to illuminate, say, half of the hall at one time, and I walked down the hall, then the light would follow me, and there would be sunrise as the pew down there, and sunset as the pews behind me sort of got into the dark of the light. So that's all we say, that, and the ancients all say.
Does the moon move, or does that stay where it is?
The moon and the sun are both moving on their own tracks.
Oh,
the
so
moon,
that's how you're saying. Do you think night and day?
So it moves around the world. Now, that's actually what you see, and that's why we say sunrise.
But you say
sunset.
around. If the world was flat, it couldn't move around.
Okay, there's a couple of theories.
No, the world's just not flat though, bro.
But wait, imagine, firstly, water is always flat and level, and Earth is 70% water. So they say that there should be curvature of 8 inches in the mile squared, which means that over 10 miles there should be 60 feet of curvature. But we can see boats at 60 feet. We can see lighthouses at 50 miles. And they should be well underneath this so-called curvature, which we can never measure. So we can't measure curvature, and Earth is mostly water. So when does it ever get to be a round and a ball? That's the first thing I'd say. Secondly, when it comes to the lights, think about the lights. What we say about sunrise. Hey, we say sunrise. We're not rolling towards the sun. The sun is rising, and if you watch it now, as I've been doing for 5 years since I came across this information, is that you'll see it track across the sky all day. And if you watch the moon, it's moving at about 45 minutes a day slower than the sun, so it sort of loses time on the sun. But you can watch it in the daytime. And when they taught me at school about the half moon, they said that the reason there's a half moon is because the Earth is throwing a shadow onto the moon. From the sun, you've got this Earth in the middle, and then the moon, which has got a shadow from the Earth. Turns out that you can see the moon for 2 weeks of the month during the daytime, where the sun and the moon are both in the sky, and you've got a shadow on part of the moon, but Earth is obviously not in the way.
Is it true that, like, in the North Pole or something like that, like, it's night time for like a good 2 weeks?
Yeah, they have a winter, like, where it doesn't, and they also have the opposite, where it's like, apparently, where it's light for days at a time.
What's that about then?
Well, I mean, there's a number of theories. Let's say there's lots of stuff that I can't know for sure.
Yeah.
So we can all theorize this stuff, but we've got the theory of gravity, theory of relativity, the theory of evolution. These are all theories because they cannot be proven.
Yeah.
So all I'm going to say is that water is level, so I no longer believe that the theory of roundness, right?
Yeah.
Everything else.
Is this for like YouTube or a commercial, or do you
Well,
just...
I go around. For a few years, I've been motivated to go around the world and tell people, not around the world, around Europe, to tell people.
Where are you from then? England or?
I was born in England but raised in South Africa, and I'm a former soldier. I was a veteran of an Anglo in a war in Anglo.
Traveled the world a little bit then.
I've travelled a lot of the world. I was allowed to sit in the cockpit of a flight from Johannesburg to London for about a half an hour.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you're always struck by when you get that opportunity is just this blanket of cloud that's just stretched out in front of you, right? And actually, wherever you look, it's all level. It all looks like a level. But if we lived on a ball, that plane would actually be having to dip its nose down and follow the curvature of the Earth. And if it's a flight as long as Johannesburg, London, 6,000 miles is a quarter of the distance around the globe. So that's like a 45-degree shift or a 90-degree shift of my position. That my level is now, my glasses and my table in the plane is level now, and it's just going to stay level, but I'm going to have to drop down 45 or 90 degrees. None of that makes sense.
What encouraged you to like do this around like Europe?
Because people need to know the truth. Because we've all been lied to by all the institutions of power. The government, the religious orders, the science has been misled. The scientists, they're clever guys, but they're the ones who got A in class when they answered the question right. Well, who says that answer was the only answer? Yeah. And I've moved on from material or particle physics, which is what I grew up on, atoms and all of that, into a more like an electromagnetic theory, where everything is an electromagnetic torus field, and we're on the center plane of two torus fields that are sort of pushing against each other. And our whole bodies are like little electromagnetic apples, and we're inside of an electromagnetic apple. This Earth is that. It's a closed system all the way around. Everything exists within it. You cannot kill it. You cannot damage it. Climate change is a lie. It's a hoax designed to make humans hate themselves. To say, we're the bad, we're always bad, right? When it turns out, actually, we're meant to be the center of creation, and this, we're meant to be here on some kind of Eden, enjoying, loving this place. But we've been turned into hateful, like, we don't like them from that team, we don't like them from that group. We have to struggle against him or her in order to get ahead, in order to kind of get the things that we want. We no longer want to be ourselves. We want to be Calvin Klein, or we want to be a sports star. We want to be some other footballer. Ronaldo or something like that. That's instead of we are the most amazing thing. We are the center of creation. we are the center of creation, and we should know that, and we should so-called authority, like the government,
tell us how it is.
to tell us how to be, to tell us how to live. We should know. If we clear away the clutter and the bullshit that we've been taught, then we start to realize we have like this this direct relationship with ourselves,
Yeah.
where you look in the mirror and you know what what I did yesterday, I probably shouldn't have done that. The next time I'm going to do it differently. You know, I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to grow up to be a good husband, a good father, all those sort of things, and I'm going to seek that in myself. And not look for the government to either tell me how to behave or pay for me or all this sort of stuff, you know. So that's why I think it's absolutely important that people go around the world, go around wherever in their neighborhood and try and be a brighter light to people and say, hey, stop following all this bullshit that you're getting from Netflix.
So like
and from
everyone you've
BBC.
done this to, have you ever found anyone that believes it's flat as well?
No.
Yeah.
What do you believe? It's
Yeah, look.
The Earth is flat.
Earth is flat.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
You're not.
Oh yeah.
No, I thought it was no.
Oh,
What?
no, yeah, that's yeah. Sorry to hit it to you so hard, but it's
No,
Yeah,
no.
but say,
in terms
you
of the
took
world that
all
we
the
can
water
experience.
from the Earth and put
Yeah.
it in a big bowl,
Yeah.
and then you put it in a flat one.
Oh wait,
Which
so
one would
you're
have more?
wait.
Hold on. How about this? If I said to you, let's build a model of the Earth, and I'm going to use the typical flat Earth model, which is like a swimming pool with some rocks in it and like a magnet in the middle. Now all the ships can go around.
I get where he's coming from.
so
all the ships can go around.
On the real, I get where he's coming
But
from.
no one in science and no one in the world can offer you a model of a globe where rivers are running up the side, like the Nile River is running up the side.
So you bit like
Yeah, I get what you.
like
I get
you're
what you're saying.
saying-
I get what you're
you're
I'm only
sort of-
saying what is natural
You're
physics.
sort of saying like the world's flat, like because of like gravity, and that's the way that water doesn't like sort of just go everywhere.
Well, no, if you take a cup or a swimming pool or whatever,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know that pool, if you cracked it, the water would run downhill.
Yeah,
It would run
yeah.
away. So
Yes,
always we know
it
that
always
water
runs
must
down.
be contained. It
Yeah.
always runs downhill.
Well, that's where you're getting like the apples of like gravitational.
Okay.
thingy,
Well,
innit?
we don't. I mean, I don't think in terms of gravity. We think more in terms of buoyancy and density.
Yeah.
So things are more dense or buoyant depending on the environment. If we were in a swimming pool, we'd be bobbing up and down like this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So fairly buoyant. But now we're in air, we're heavier than the air. But if I was to attach some helium balloons or to allow some helium balloons to go up, they would go up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they would be trying to find their natural buoyancy within
Density
the
and stuff like that.
with their density and the surrounding density.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
either going to fall down or it's going to rise up depending on the
Yeah.
density. If this was all water, then the rules would be slightly different. Some things would still sink and others would float.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and that's buoyancy and density. And before the invention of the term gravity,
Yeah.
everything was known as in terms of buoyancy, density, and where things are there. You can take different liquids and put them in a jar, and they will all settle in perfect levels.
I've
It's
seen
strata.
that.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
And the same is true with the gases. Our gases, as you go up, are all like in a layer cake of thinner and thinner gases into the noble gases.
Yeah.
And things are so thin up there, they say, oh, all of a sudden, gravity, having allowed it to rise 100,000 feet, is now going to grab a hold of it and hold it there and create a barrier that it never goes into this terrible vacuum of space. Now, this terrible vacuum of space that we're advertised by NASA has never been proven to exist for real.
Yeah.
It looks like when they do a spacewalk, they're doing it in a swimming pool with a blue screen, and they've never taken their spacesuit into a vacuum chamber on
say
Earth.
it's on the news. It says, "Oh, an asteroid is going to hit the world."
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you just think
They're
it's
trying to
bullshit?
frighten us into paying more money for space protection. Space, Donald Trump announced a Space Force 2 years ago in America. They got the Space Force, right, to protect us from that sort of thing. I used to believe in the space race that they had these more about screwing me over, making me fearful,
making you look
and
like
then pay
a
more taxes.
But it works.
I'm old enough to have been a voter when Tony Blair lied to the country about weapons of mass destruction. He said 45 minutes, Saddam Hussein will bring hell and I said to my family, we've got to support this war. It's horrible. I've been to war. I don't want to encourage war, but if he's going to do that, then we're going to have to take this action. Fear. Fear. And fear is what they use to control us and to keep us paying taxes, to keep you going along with being simply another brick in the wall. And your life should be far more rich than that.
To you, like this might sound stupid, but if you heard the theory that like the world's just like a massive donut, like no, I'm not even taking the piss. Like, have you heard
No,
that
well,
theory?
if you look into, when you go home, if you look into torus fields, electromagnetic torus fields,
Yeah.
and you can actually get scientists who don't think that the Earth is flat, and they will do where they do primer fields, electromagnetic primer fields, and you can actually see how the sort of the shape of the magnet is almost like a donut.
I'm not chatting shit, bro. I'm not chatting shit.
Minecraft never lies.
Yeah, so and Minecraft is a great example of flat Earth. Minecraft is flat. There's no going over the side of it. It's all a block square world, and that's what I think that we live in. Some kind of fractal
He
world.
started to convince me,
You
bro.
convinced
He
me.
started to convince
Right,
me. that
is
we'll
this
stop,
like going
bro.
on YouTube? I want to watch it.
Yeah, I've got a
Is
channel
it?
called Trinity 4.
Trinity
Right.
4. Is
Yeah,
there any
yeah.
spaces or anything like that?
spaces.
Like, is there any spaces in the
No, yes, Trinity Space 4.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. You guys are very savvy. Very savvy.
Number 4.
Trinity, no, yeah, and the number 4.
Is it TRINITY? Yeah.
Trinity
And then
Space 4.
space.
Number 4.
That's it. When's this going to be?
Well,
get
it's
put
not
on
like
it?
It's live
just a
right
space.
now.
If
Yeah, to be fair, bro. To be fair.
Well, it's live at the moment, so if
Oh,
you
is
click
it?
on it,
Is
you'll
it?
be able to see yourself.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Does it like yeah?
There's about a 5
Does it
second
carry
lag.
over onto the channel or?
How
So
do you-
people are watching us.
Yeah, right now some people are watching.
Shout your grandma out.
Boy, shit, damn.
But I ask you to look into this because actually, if it's true,
Yeah.
and I say it absolutely is,
Yeah.
then we've been deceived totally about who we
In
are.
about 20
what we
years
are,
now, I'm
and so
like, that guy, he was right. Yeah.
No, to be
hopefully
fair,
not 20
to be
years.
fair.
Hopefully not 20 years. There's a documentary. There's a documentary on YouTube called 200 Proofs Earth is not a ball. You can check that out. Or Mark Sargent's got something called.
Realistically, how long have
Yeah.
we been speaking right now?
I'll give you a
15
subscribe.
Right, so 15 minutes he's convinced me that the world is flat. Like, that's no 20 years, bro. That's 15 minutes
So do you
talking,
just
bro.
go, oh, that's illegal.
What's your
that.
name?
Corona,
What's your name?
Corona.
Right, I'm good. Nice one, right?
Trinity,
Yeah.
right, here we
Trinity
go.
4. Check it out on YouTube. Right? You got some questions? Yeah. Well.
Oh wait, it's
any
live
questions?
now.
Yeah.
Trinity Grace, Mandarian worship.
No, not
that's
that.
not
Oh,
right.
no.
Oh wait, Holy Trinity. No.
No.
Look, go.
Wait, that's
look,
you, yeah.
Look at channel.
Oh, you got 1,000. Oh, there you go. Oh.
Yeah.
Oi! Oi! Bro, that sun's there! That's ace!
Fantastic.
Yeah, cheers for anyway. You
yeah.
taught me a bit.
Nice
you
one,
know,
cheers.
you taught me
Yeah,
a
look
bit.
into it.
Nice one,
Look
thanks,
into
man.
it.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's lovely to. Yeah. All right.
Please,
All right.
yeah,
Be
cheers
well.
for that.
Be well. Stay
Take
well.
care.
Have no fear.
Hopefully I'll see you on the news sometime.
Yeah. Telling the
Find out
truth.
It's all a hoax.
Yeah, it's all a hoax. But they've got some tricks up their sleeve, so don't expect for there not to be some bad days ahead. We've got some tough times coming. But try and be spiritually strong because actually you are divine, you are a sense of creation. Have no fear of death, no fear of anything. Just love life. Be a good man.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much.
All the best, brother.
Yeah, all the best.
You're Eddie Bravo, aren't you?
I know Eddie Bravo. I don't know if I'm a fan, but you obviously keep looking at it.
I'm open-minded on it all.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm very open-minded.
Eddie Bravo does a brilliant delivery. He's a very good
I listened
speaker.
to him on Joe Rogan. That's when I first saw
Joe
him.
Rogan is a thumb. And
I know what you mean about Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan's a thumb. And actually, I used to like Joe Rogan, and then he went and reversed his position on the moon landings. You can't go from the moon landings are a complete hoax to oh yeah, I believe it totally now.
Yeah.
No. That's not for a guy like Joe Rogan. He's been told to go that way. So I'm
Yeah.
afraid he's a little bit of a controlled agent.
Yeah, I have my thoughts on. I doubt the moon landings. When it comes to flat Earth, I struggle to believe it.
Okay.
I see back and forth. I'm open-minded with it, but I struggle to get my head around that. I believe in a lot of conspiracies,
Yeah.
about a lot of things, but when it comes to flat Earth,
Go home. Yes. Be well. Love it.
yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
When
Well,
it comes to flat Earth, I'm a bit.
Have you
I mean,
looked in-
like, how do you explain? Where's the end of it then?
you're welcome, brother. Take care.
Like I hear a few people
Ryan.
say.
Cheers.
I hear some people say the ice caps is the end, the flat Earth, they say the ice caps is the end, but what's over them? Why has no one been over them if people think that's the end?
Okay. Well, those are the kind of let's say the second stage questions for me beyond the what we can test and measure of ourselves because that's all theoretical as far as I can tell. We could say, oh, the military stop us from going there and all those sorts of things, but what you and I can test for ourselves are the things that are around us. So physically, when we test water, we always find it to be level, beach to beach. Any distance that we can take a photograph of, we can find no obvious curvature. And their math, their formula, which I no longer agree with, I think it should be a lot more, but they say that over 10 miles there should be 60 feet of curvature. And we don't see any evidence of this. Right?
Yeah.
So that's my starting point. Then we can't prove that we're moving. We've got no way, scientific experiment. People say, oh, the pendulum swings and all this sort of stuff. But, there are other explanations for things like that. And if we were genuinely spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, then I think planes and other things would have to make account for that.
I do know, if you fly to New York, there or back, either way, I can't remember, but one way is a bit longer.
I
than the
agree.
other.
Well, yes, because we do have what they call, what are those winds called? They have these they do have a certain current that they ride on the way back or on the way there. I'm not sure which way it blows, but that allows for maybe a 20-minute, maybe a 30-minute shortage of the journey. If we were spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, which is faster than the plane is actually flying, the plane would struggle, unless it was being pushed along by the atmosphere, it would struggle to even catch up with the Earth as it's spun away from it. So practically that's what it is. And of course airplanes are called planes for a reason. And when I first found this in 2015, I had a flight coming up in 2016. I took a Spirit level, digital one, and I zeroed it on the floor before we moved. And once we were in the air, it stayed at 1.5 degrees nose up until we were ready to settle. Yeah. And then it came down to about a 0.5 degree nose up, and down we came. And then it touched zero only once we settled on the tarmac. Yeah. So for me, the plane remained level throughout the 1.5-hour flight. There's no question in my mind. And of course, our bodies would respond to some sort of change in attitude. So those are the things I think. In terms of how does it work? You know, if it is this, then I talk to people about an electromagnetic theory. I think that it's maybe like an electromagnetic torus system. Perhaps there's a North Pole center, and from that is either rising up or going into a sort of donut-shaped thing, which would represent, I suppose you could represent it as an apple. Yeah. And that apple would be the totality of the universe as we know it. We can't get outside of that apple. Is there anything outside of that, perhaps?
How would you explain the space station? Because you can see, I know you'll argue it's not the space station, but you do see it at a time of day, and you can follow it on, and I've got an app. Have you ever had the pleasure of firing a weapon, a handgun or something like that? Yeah. Well, we're both ex-military, and we've also fired weapons. Now, it turns out that the space station is traveling more than 10 times faster than a bullet, and it is 250 miles away. At 250 miles, I would barely be able to tell you, I couldn't see a city from 250 miles away. And that's the normal, again, what you and I can experience. At 100 miles, it would have to be something massive for us to see it. Would you not agree? I agree, but I think if the space is black at night and it's a bright light in the sky, I believe
So the brightest lights that we have on Earth are lighthouses, right? Yeah. And they can be seen up to 60 miles away in the perfect condition. 60 miles away, the brightest light. So you got to ask yourself this question: is it feasible that 4 times further away, I'm seeing something that isn't actually a light, it's simply a reflective surface?
But if you're looking straight on, you have fog to account for. If you're looking up to the sky, through the atmosphere,
I'd accept that.
You'd not really have fog.
I'd accept that.
On a clear night, at least, anyway.
But a lighthouse would be blinding to a man at about 100 meters from it, right? And as you go away, you get something called the inverse square law, and the light sort of halves in luminosity for every doubling of the distance that you get away from it. So if you applied the same rules to something that you can see in the sky that was apparently 250 miles away, the brightness of it would be incandescent. And all the cameras that were on the International Space Station would be surrounded by this constant glow and so on. So no, and coming back to the speed of it, right? Because it's 10 times faster than a bullet, and it's a small thing, like twice the size of an airplane at best. 250 miles away, 25 miles away, it's hard to see an airplane. At 250 miles away, it would be so tiny as to be a speck, moving faster, 10 times faster than a bullet. I respectfully suggest to you, my friend, that what they're doing is part of the parlor trick, is if they can fake the spacewalks in a swimming pool, they can fake their 0G by using the Vomit Comet plane, they can use harnesses and all this thing, then why wouldn't they be able to offer some U-2 spy plane at 70,000 feet with candles on it, with lights on it, traveling very quickly through the sky?
But what are they gaining by, if this is all a lie, what are they gaining by making us think that there's a space station flying past us?
Well, they're reinforcing the idea that there was a cosmic Big Bang and that everything came from nothing. They're reinforcing the idea of evolution. And they're reinforcing the idea that you are merely a lucky happenstance speck in a Goldilocks zone, and that has to be grateful to a protective government who looks out for you in case an asteroid destroys you like it did the dinosaurs. So it's all part of a grand deception to rob us of the truth. And that truth is that you are divine spirit or soul of the creator of this world. And that,
so is this a religious thing then? Does this come onto a religious thing? Or?
Well, I'm quite against religion, I'll be honest with you. I think religion is part of the government. You see, part of the mind control, part of the mind control of the people has been through using religious orders, fragmenting them to keep people apart from each other. Then when that wasn't working so well, coming up with science, through the aegis of government, coming up with science that people could believe in. And now the majority of people on Earth are believers in this theoretical Darwinian idea of having come from some sort of evolutionary soup. Which could be nothing further from the truth. The truth is that we were created perfectly in God's image, or the Creator's image. Now, I was an atheist until 5 years ago, so I'm lucky to have had like a pineal gland opening with an ayahuasca experience 5 years ago. And so in 5 minutes, I went from the strong atheist to a believer in a creator, a creation, and that I was part of that creation. And it was a loving creation for which I had to have no fear. But I very much got that sense that, not even the sense, just the knowing, because that was my experience. And I went back afterwards and researched the heck out of it and realized that, yes, it's true that we are part of some creation. I wanted there to be life on Mars. And it turns out, no, we're the center of this creation. We're meant to be maximizing our growth potential, soul growth potential, while we're here. But that soul growth potential is being stunted. The light of Christ, if you like, is being held down because the system never wants you to know who you truly are and what you truly are capable of. That's where I think this is important. And
so it's kind of a spiritual belief.
It's a spiritual, sort of, yeah. I mean, I don't like the word belief because it hides the word lie. Belief belies the lie within, And my experience on the DMT, having done loads of party drugs in my time. So I wasn't hallucinating or anything. This was a knowing. This was an opening. This was and as I say, the ayahuasca is a well-known shamanic experience that you can do in South America. So this isn't something that I've just kind of come to by myself, but it was a slap in the face to say, no, you're not just this one life, live once and all that sort of shit. It's actually, you're part of some sort of eternal long story. And you can choose to contribute good vibrations or higher energy or whatever, or lower, darker energy. And that is our choice. And knowing what I know now, I know my choice is to be a light and to get out and share that light. But a lot of our true sense of self and knowing ourself and so on is lost when you are taught at 5 years old that you're an insignificant speck. I mean, it made me as a child, a fairly smart child, I felt quite shit about the idea that you're not important, you're just a lucky 1 in a billion sperm cell, 1 in a billion chance that this universe would have us and all this sort of shit.
That's proven though, that's proven through science, like that we're 1 in however many trillions through sperm cells that we're lucky to have made it. Yeah. That's proven with microscopes. I know you'll say microscopes and that are lie, but at what point can you stop saying that this evidence is lies? Are we going to argue that every bit of scientific evidence is a lie?
No, but I tell you what it does help is that I much prefer hearing from people who've already worked out the foundation. You see, you're an intelligent man, I'm sure.
I'd like to think I'm open-minded about things.
Yeah. But now we're all, fairly intelligent, but we've all been given such a duff board to play our game on, our game of chess, our game of life on, that we can never play it right. So no matter what profession you're in, you're never going to be able to play your game as well if you're playing your chess or your basketball on a curved surface than you are if you're on a level surface. And I say to all my friends, if you realize that the earth is flat and you've done all the work for yourself, you can realize that, then you can go back and recalibrate everything else that you were taught, because everything else that you were taught has to be tainted because it comes from the same religious academic kind of control system that was once the kings and queens of the world, or the popes and so on. They have given us this education system. We found it to be severely wanting. And now we're willing to look at things beyond the atom and say, what if the particle physics is also wrong? What if it's in fact some sort of electromagnetic wave theory that makes much more sense? And for me, having seen it in the DMT, I know that everything's an electromagnetic wave, and simply you and I decoding. We've got a decoder here, and we're decoding this material as rubber or stone or hard or light or whatever. But in fact, it's all just a wave. Everything is just a sound or a frequency. So, for me, I say that pretty much everything we've learned has to be thrown off the chessboard. Give yourself a flat surface and rebuild it. And people are doing a lot of that. And I'm finding a lot of good information, good science, good doctors. Doctors are talking about COVID, and they're talking about how viruses can't be transmitted from one person, certainly not this COVID thing, and so on. So people are starting to kind of wake up and say, shit, the stuff that we've been pounded with by the system is probably not true.
I believe in a lot of that. I'm very much don't believe everything you're told. The media are the worse for it. I believe in like all of that. You shouldn't pay attention to everything you hear. I just think there needs to be a point where things get a bit silly, in my opinion. I know it's down to opinions, but I do think when it comes to the Earth is flat, there's as much. If you say that the Earth is flat, I think and you're arguing against it being round, you've got to equally respect the argument that it might be round as well as flat. 'Cause there's just as much evidence on both sides. There's no evidence that the world's flat.
Well, would you say
not
that...
physical evidence.
Well, if we said that the Earth was 70% water, would you agree with that?
I mean, if you're out at sea and all you see is water, you could definitely
Well,
say...
mainstream science says it's 71, 72% water. So if we just go with what mainstream science says about how much water there is versus how much land there is, that's why I always look to water to be my kind of judge on this question. Because simply put, any body of water that we can measure always comes back level. The Suez Canal is 120 miles long and provably level from end to end. Lake Baikal in Russia apparently is 300 miles long and it freezes over every year. And they all do ice skating and stuff like that because it's a perfectly flat surface. There should be some half a mile of hump in the middle of Lake Baikal if it was true that water was bending. So if 70% of our Earth is water and water is always level, then the only things that are lumpy are the continents, the rocks sticking out of the top of the water, it seems to me. So, water we know, in practical terms, you could not get water to sit on the outside of the bowl. We could only get it to stay on the inside of the bowl. So that's the natural physics of water, is that it must be contained. Anything that says, oh, water's going to stick to the outside of this when the bowl gets big enough, is a theory. And now that we're calling it out and saying, shit, the natural physics of water, we do laser tests over 20 miles, 30 miles, and we know we're going to come back level. The Americans have a rail gun that they fire at Mark 15, and it shoots 80, 100 miles, ship to ship, point to point, side to side. And that should have, 100 miles should have 6,000 feet of curvature, according to the mainstream version of what the curvature is. So it's like, there are things that fit both the flat Earth and the globe Earth models. That's true. But there is a predominance of things, in my view now, having looked at it, and I'm 52, and and for most of my life, I was pushing space on my children, I was pushing all of that, So now I know that there's far more evidence that things aren't moving, things are level, point to point. If a ship leaves England and goes to America, it's not going down, it's just kind of going, which of course it wouldn't. And of course the water wouldn't be happy about having to go down and just be held by a magical idea called gravity. So that's...
And I'll just add that I used to be a sniper, and I can guarantee there's no rotation, axial rotation, and there's no curvature either from observations firing over long distances. That's with mortars as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the military myself. I never did anything that made me question things like that. But I don't know. I think you can go back and forth. It's good that people can have a conversation and see other people's points of view. But like I say, you go back and forth all day with people about it. I'm guessing you've been writing all this as well, have you?
Earth is flat. We can't get around that. Water's always level. Sea is always level. Oceans are always level. Earth is mostly water.
Earth is flat, obviously.
I'm going to have to rock and roll.
Yeah,
I haven't
chat to you anyway, mate. Yeah.
What's your name?
Brad.
Brad.
Yeah. Is this on your YouTube, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a
Trinity
look at it later.
Space 4.
Trinity Space 4?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have a look later
Space?
on.
No, I don't mean that kind of space. Yeah, just
Space, oh I got you, yeah. Got you.
Guys, we're going to have to go.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. And that was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
See you
welcome.
later.
You're welcome. That was fun and enjoyable. I hope you enjoyed that and made my Sunday trip into town a little bit more fruitful. a couple of those conversations, and yeah, those two young lads. Ryan was one of them. Well done, lads. Open minds. I love it. Maybe this is about keeping Corona open after all, you know. Don't let it be a virus. Let it be love. Let it be love. So, lovely to see you. Thanks very much for coming by. Thanks very much.